Hey, what is up, guys? I wanted to make this video about a question that I get pretty frequently, which is how do I get started with art and where do I start? And I think the first key point I want to get across is to just begin. Just start. Don't overthink it. Don't wait. Just jump into it. It's something you kind of figure out as you go and you gain momentum the more you do it. It's easy to get some sort of analysis paralysis by overthinking what's the right way, how am I supposed to approach this? But really, there is no right way to do it. Just jumping in kind of gives you a good starting point to figure out what you're dealing with and how to proceed from there. So, first point I want to make is just, don't be scared, don't overthink it, just jump into it. One of the great things with art is the really low barrier to entry. You don't need a digital tablet or any fancy art supplies to get started. You just need a pen or pencil and some paper. It's really easy, and whatever you have on handy is going to be more than enough. As far as where to start, subject matter wise, I would say start with whatever excites you. The fundamentals are present in everything. If you want to draw portraits or characters or animals or vehicles or environments or whatever it may be, start with that. The key component, I think, improving more than anything else is consistency in the long run. If you stick with it and it's something you do frequently and you develop that habit and routine, it's going to be something that really allows you to improve over people who just jump into it really hardcore for maybe a week or a month or something. So consistency over the long run, I think, is best attained by doing stuff you enjoy, doing stuff that excites you and that you're interested in pursuing and getting better at. Another part of this question that people frequently bring up is wanting to know how long they should draw each day. And I would say it really depends on you and your schedule, but I think the habit and consistency is key more than anything else. You may only have half an hour to draw each day. Maybe you have 3 hours, or maybe you have most of the day. So kind of use whatever time you have. If you're just getting started, I would try setting a number. If you have an hour free, shoot for that. You can always do more if you want, but not jumping into something like an 8 hour or 10 hour a day schedule off the bat is probably best so you don't, burn out and you can kind of ease yourself into it. But really, more than anything, it's consistency and developing the habit. So if you can do a little bit each day, that's great. And that's kind of a good starting point to work from. But it really depends on how much free time you have. So once you've started drawing, the next question is, how do I improve? How do I actually get good? How do I study and learn properly? Well, I think, like I said, again, consistency is the key. So the people who seem to improve the most over the long run are the people who just don't give up. If you keep at a skill for any long period of time and you're constantly working with those problems, you're going to get better. It's always those people who stick with it and refuse to give up who are the ones who really make it far with art. Aside from that, the big key, in my opinion, is doing studies. Studies with a focus on understanding. Initially, when you're learning to draw and developing that habit, it's really about learning to see, learning to train your eye, developing those observational skills of judging proportion and distance and everything like that. But beyond that, I think focusing on studies with the intent of trying to understand what you're doing is the key component that you really see improvement when people start doing that. And what I mean is being analytical about what you're studying, trying to understand why it looks the way it does. If it's an object that you're trying to learn to draw, could you rotate that into different perspectives? Do you know what basic shapes make it up? Trying to really break down and simplify the subject matter that you're studying is the key, in my opinion. So if it's lighting, you're trying to judge, why does it look like that? What direction does the lighting come from? What temperature is the lighting? Is it bouncing off this object? Is that why there's some like light on the underside of it? Really trying to be analytical and put new information into your head that you can then output into your own work is really the key. You can't output what you don't input. So constantly trying to put new information in your head, whether it's the fundamentals of light, of structure, or even if it's a visual library in terms of design for costume or anything like that. Trying to do these studies with a focused intent on what you're trying to learn and what you're trying to get better at is really the key. So taking your work and seeing what you don't like about it, seeing any flaws or weaknesses, and then tailoring your studies specifically to focus on those weaknesses and improve is really where I think I see people improve the most. Sometimes people can fall into the trap of doing a study and just trying to make it look exactly like the photo or exactly like what the object is because it's impressive and it looks cool. But it's really easy to get into a copying mode, a sort of mindset where you're just becoming a scanner and you're just trying to reproduce what's in front of you without actually understanding why it looks that way. So if you can really decipher the whys of that image, whether it's something with value that you're trying to learn or something with perspective that you're trying to learn, those are where I really think I see jumps in improvement with people when they're really doing focused studies to tackle a specific weakness they have. You may have the question, what is a study? And a study can be a lot of things. It can be from a photograph, it can be from life, an actual scene in front of you. It can be a master study where you're doing a study of the works of a master painter. Really, the key is that you're taking something and you're trying to analyze it and learn from it. You can have a focus with a study on perhaps its perspective or construction of an object. Maybe you're studying the anatomy in a figure drawing and how the human body is composed of basic shapes and how to structure those. Maybe it's a scene with color or lighting and you're trying to understand how that works. But really, I think if you have a general goal in what you're trying to improve at, it's going to make this study a lot more useful to you. You're going to actually be able to kind of take the information in there and apply it to your own work. And that brings me to the other point where I think the key to getting better with these studies is application. If you just do a study and you don't apply the knowledge you've learned, it's not really going to be put to use. It kind of goes in one ear and out the other. But actually applying what you're studying directly to a piece from imagination afterwards, I think is very, very beneficial and extremely useful in helping you actually apply that information in a way that sticks. So if you do a study of anatomy, try drawing something from your imagination afterwards using that anatomy. See what exactly about it stuck, what you understood. And as you do it, you're going to realize that there's some weak points. There's some areas when you're doing it from your imagination that you don't quite understand. Then you can go back and do a study specifically targeting that weakness. Maybe the area where the pec and the delt, in the anatomy meet kind of confuses you. Well, then you can go do a study afterwards tailored specifically towards that. So doing these studies and then directly applying what you learned afterwards is really going to boost your ability to retain the information and learn from it. I think a huge part of doing studies and making them useful and applicable to your own work is simplification. If you're studying the human form, try to break down the basic shapes of the body, translate them into spheres and cubes and cylinders. So when you take this complex information, this could be for anatomy, it could be for lighting, it could be for anything. Try to simplify what you're seeing so you can more easily construct it on your own without reference from your imagination. I think simplification is the only way to really make sense of these extremely complicated principles. At a glance, anatomy is very overwhelming. Lighting in a scene with all these different colors can be very overwhelming. But if you try to simplify it and take the most basic concepts of it and apply it to your own work, it gives you a really great starting point. And then the more studies you do with that subject, you can kind of go back and tackle more nuanced aspects of it, or more subtle things, or more complex things. But really trying to take that information and simplify it, I think, is a huge help in having this information actually retain and stick. Something to keep in mind is this is really all about mileage. The more you work at these problems, the more practice you do, the better you're going to get. You can't really work at a problem constantly being analytical about it, really trying to figure out specific issues you're struggling with and not improve at a subject. So keep in mind, it's kind of a long-term thing. You're not going to be amazing within a week, but if you keep at this and you keep it consistent, you're going to see improvement. And something I really want to emphasize, especially from someone who struggled with perfectionism a lot throughout the years, is don't be afraid to fail. Don't feel like everything has to be perfect. You're learning. You're going to be doing a lot of bad drawings. You're going to be experimenting with new things you haven't done, and that's going to result in failures, ugly drawings, all that stuff, but that's totally part of the learning process. Keep in mind, this is a long-term thing, and the more you do, the better you'll get. But knowing when I started, I had all these fears of trying new things, of taking learning opportunities and avoiding them because I didn't want it to show a drawing that was uglier than I was hoping I could do. But that's just gonna hurt you in the long run. It's gonna keep you from learning. So just have fun with it, have fun with the progress that you're gonna make each time you try new things. Even if you fail, you're learning valuable lessons for the next piece that you do. So embrace that, have fun with it, and don't worry about everything being perfect, especially when you're starting out. The next step is really just to prove it to yourself. Try setting up a routine where you're working consistently every day if you can, with whatever works in your schedule. Try for 3 months. Try keeping up that habit and routine with art, doing studies with a focus on learning and understanding, and track your work. Keep the pieces you do and come back to it 3 months from then and see how you've improved. You may not improve day to day or even week to week, but as that time adds up and you're really studying and working, I'm sure you'll see improvement and progress. And the next thing is to really enjoy the progress you see. If you're constantly comparing yourself to other people or where you wish you were or where you feel you should be, you're not really going to be able to see your own progress. So kind of compete with yourself. Try to be better than the artist you were yesterday, not necessarily comparing yourself to other artists who have different situations and different levels of experience. Compare yourself to yourself and really take joy in those moments where you feel like you've overcome something you've been struggling with, or you now understand something that you didn't really get as much before. So if you take joy in the progress that you do see, that's really going to help you with the motivation. It's going to make you happier in the long run. Don't be so hard on yourself. And you're going to be able to kind of see yourself improve over this long term. And that's where I think it's really fun, is to look back where I was a year ago or 2 years ago and really see how far I've come throughout all this time. All amazing artists are people who are once a beginner. They just never stop doing it and they never quit. They're always trying to learn more and figure out what it is they can do to improve where they're currently at and tackle their current weaknesses. So don't give yourself a reason to doubt yourself. Don't overthink it. Art is a really fun thing. It's really accessible. If you want to start now, just go for it. Pick something you enjoy and just do it. So that's pretty much it. Those are my thoughts on the subject. Hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully it cleared up maybe some questions you have. I think really it's not as complicated as people may think it is. I think art's really mysterious to people who haven't done it. When they see people who have been at it for years and accomplished great things, it almost looks like magic in some ways. But really, if you want to get into it, it's just about consistency, trying to tackle those specific weaknesses you feel you have. And I mean, more than anything else, just having fun with it. That's really what keeps you consistent. And I think that's the key more than anything else. So guys, appreciate you checking out this video. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next time.